I always believed marriage was about partnership. The kind where even if the world stood against you, you still had each other's back. But somewhere along the way, my wife, Emily, forgot that. Or maybe she never truly believed it the way I did. It started small. We'd go out with friends or colleagues, and I'd notice the way she created distance between us, like she was embarrassed to be seen as too close. At first, I told myself I was imagining it, that maybe she just wanted to appear independent. But it wasn't independence, it was rejection dressed up as casual detachment. The night everything broke open was at her company's annual gala. She had been preparing for weeks, excited about the dress, the people she'd see, the chance to network. I thought of it as a night to support her, to show that I was proud to be by her side. We walked into the hall together, and I noticed how she instantly shifted her tone, her posture, her smile. Around her colleagues, she was all charm and confidence. When I reached for her hand, wanting to share in her moment, she gently pulled away, almost too smoothly, as if she had practiced the move. But it wasn't the pull that hurt me the most, it was what she whispered right after. "Don't let them think we're a couple." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The words sliced sharper than any fight we had ever had. We weren't arguing in private. This wasn't some heated mistake. This was deliberate. She was telling me in a room full of people that being associated with me was something she couldn't risk. I stood there, staring at her, trying to process. Did she really think being my wife was a liability? That holding my hand could somehow lower her in the eyes of her coworkers? She smiled at someone across the room, acting as if nothing had happened. But for me, the entire evening had already collapsed. I sat through dinner like a ghost, her laughter with others clanging in my ears, the image of her hand slipping from mine replaying over and over. When she leaned in to whisper about networking after the speeches, I didn't answer. I simply pushed my chair back, stood up, and walked out of the room. I didn't look back, not at her shocked expression, not at the whispers that followed me, not even at the doorman who offered a polite smile as I stepped into the night. All I knew was that the woman who had once sworn vows to stand beside me had just made it clear she wanted the opposite. And for the first time in years, I wondered if walking away from her that night might not just be temporary. It might be permanent. When I got home that night, the silence hit me harder than the words she had spoken. The house we had built together, decorated with photos from vacations, anniversaries, and holidays, suddenly felt like it belonged to strangers. I stared at the framed picture on the mantel. Emily with her head resting on my shoulder, both of us smiling like the future was ours to hold. But in that moment, the memory felt like a cruel joke. I replayed her whisper over and over. "Don't let them think we're a couple." The phrasing was so cold, so calculated. Not "don't embarrass me," not "let's keep it professional," but an outright denial of who we were. She had erased me in a single sentence, and she had done it without hesitation. For years, I had tolerated her small dismissals. She never introduced me properly to new friends, just a casual, "This is James," instead of "This is my husband." She brushed off affectionate gestures in public, claiming she wasn't the touchy type. I believed her. I gave her space, but space had turned into distance, and distance had hardened into a wall that she never let me climb. When Emily finally walked through the front door later that night, she looked startled to see me sitting in the living room, still in my suit, the tie loosened, the untouched glass of whiskey on the table beside me. "You left without telling me," she said, setting her purse down. Her voice clipped with annoyance more than concern. I laughed. Not the kind of laugh born from humor, but the kind you let out when pain finds no other exit. "Why would I stay? So you could pretend a little longer that we're not together." Her face hardened. "James, don't make this a bigger deal than it is. I just didn't want them to think." "To think what?" I cut her off. "That you're married? That the man who's been with you through every struggle, every late-night breakdown, every damn promotion isn't worthy of standing by your side." She looked away, her silence more damning than any explanation she could have offered. I stood, the anger rising in me, fueled by years of swallowing my pride to keep the peace. "Emily, I don't know what story you're telling yourself, but tonight I heard the truth. You don't want to be seen as my wife. And if that's how you feel, maybe you shouldn't be." Her eyes snapped back to mine, wide and shocked, as if she hadn't expected me to push back. But the damage was already done. I walked past her, the decision weighing heavy in my chest, yet strangely liberating. That night, I didn't sleep in our bed. I didn't even sleep in the house. I drove until the city lights disappeared behind me, and the quiet countryside swallowed me whole. For the first time in a long time, I felt the freedom of imagining a life without her. The next morning, when I returned, Emily was waiting in the kitchen, her arms crossed, a storm already brewing in her expression. "You disappeared," she accused. "Do you have any idea how reckless that was? Just leaving like that." Her words barely grazed me. I poured myself a cup of coffee, calm in a way she hadn't seen before. "Reckless," I repeated slowly. "Emily, do you even hear yourself? You erased me in front of your colleagues, told me not to let anyone think we're together, and I'm the reckless one." She opened her mouth to argue, then shut it, her jaw tightening. The silence between us was thick, but this time I didn't rush to fill it. For years, I had been the one smoothing over the cracks, patching the holes in our marriage with excuses. But not anymore. Finally, she spoke, softer this time. "I didn't mean it the way it sounded." "Then explain it," I said flatly, because the way it sounded was very clear. She hesitated, fumbling for words. I don't like people knowing too much about my personal life. It makes me feel trapped, judged." I stared at her, the weight of her excuse pressing down on me. "You feel trapped by being my wife?" Her silence was the only answer I needed. I set the mug down, the clink louder than I intended. "Emily, I've loved you since the day I met you. I've fought for us when you pulled away. I've swallowed my pride when you made me feel invisible, and I've believed every excuse because I wanted this marriage to mean something. But last night, when you asked me to pretend we're not a couple, something in me broke. I realized I've been holding on to a version of us that only exists in my head." Tears welled in her eyes, but I didn't feel moved to comfort her this time. I felt something else, clarity. "I don't want to be with someone who's ashamed to be with me," I continued, my voice steady. "You don't have to say the words. You've already shown me." She tried to reach for me, but I stepped back. For once, I wasn't the one chasing. That afternoon, I packed a bag. I didn't take much, just enough to get by. As I closed the suitcase, I looked around the house one last time. The memories felt hollow now, stripped of the meaning I once gave them. When I walked out the door, Emily stood in the hallway, silent, tears streaming down her face. But I didn't turn back. For years, I had been afraid of losing her. Last night, I realized I had already lost her. And maybe, just maybe, it was time to find myself again.